Anyway, I'm ConceptSoup. This. I'm ConceptSoup. That was my cat, Bobby, and this is the Gigabyte Aero RTX 4080. I should let you know up front that I recorded some of the video when I was unwell, still a little bit congested as you can hear, but don't be weirded out if I'm re-rolling some footage and the speech looks a bit off. Anyway, Gigabyte Aero, it's one of the only white RTX cards out there, so just like your mother, it is hot property indeed. I just love putting together pure white builds. You'll know that I think highly of the Vision series of video cards, and I think Aero is the rebranding of that line. Comes at a price though. This card did cost £1,450 at the time of building, which is more than £300 over the RRP, which is already a little bit high. Spec-wise, it's got a factory overclock of 30 megahertz, which, as you guys know, I don't really care about that much. It's got 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 VRAM, which is very nice, very nice. We've got 850 watt power supply as a minimum, and it uses the new 16-pin connector, of course, just like all of this new series of RTX graphics cards does. In the box, you get this really nice anti-sag system. It's very elegant, it works perfectly, as we'll see during the video. Goes along with the Aero series being, of course, very classy. It's a gentleman's graphics card. It attaches to the motherboard using, where you fix the motherboard into your case, it fits there, and it also screws in to the side of the video card as well, and it looks really good. It's very low profile, but still looks very nice when it's all put together. But a big theme I'm seeing with these new cards is just how massive they are. They take up 4 slots, and that's thicker than your mum's thighs, and long. So make sure your case can handle it by looking at the spec online, not only of the case but also the graphics card. Make sure those lengths are going to line up properly. This will be our first video with the RTX 4080 in general, so it'll be interesting to see how it lines up against the RTX 4090, which we took a gander at recently. We'll also have another model of RTX 4080 coming up in a future video, maybe in a couple of weeks' time. For the rest of our build, we're actually completing a build that I've had on the back burner for ages. I originally planned to use the MSI Supremex 3090 about 6 months ago in this build, but it turned out that the card was faulty. I actually paid 1,800 quid for that card at the time, so I was pretty happy to get a credit note and get basically a free upgrade and then some. This build's been sitting around waiting for me to finish it, basically. Been moving houses, new jobs, all this kind of stuff. Nice to finally get this high-end spec going. Now the parts in this build, the main parts that you're going to be interested in are coming right up now. So the parts for the build, here we go. Ryzen 7 5800X 3D. This is our last hurrah for the AM4 platform. Really nice performance. 8 cores, 16 threads, but a massive juicy cache, which means that all these super fast-paced esports games, they're going to love that extra cache, because basically if you can store more in the cache, you've got more super fast memory available for your games, so they can be really responsive. Now, a nice CPU like this and a high-end build, we're going to want a pretty nice motherboard to go with it, and that's why I've got this MSI X570S Tomahawk Wi-Fi, which kind of represents really the top of the mid-range of motherboards, or maybe if you think about it, more the bottom end of the high-end ones, if you like. The really good quality motherboard that's going to drive this CPU perfectly, as well as keep our RAM nice and stable, which is one of the things I like about MSI boards. They're not as fussy with the memory. Speaking of memory, we've got 32 gigabytes of 3600 megahertz RAM. This is this Corsair Vengeance RGB RS, because it's quite low profile but still gives you that lovely RGB effect. And when we're talking about RGB effects, why not talk about the CPU liquid cooler? And this is the Lian-Li Galahad 360mm liquid cooler. The 5800X 3D does get pretty hot because you've got that cache all stacked up. It's got to dissipate the heat somewhere, so you need a nice cooler for this one. You can actually get away with a 240mm or a big chunky air cooler. Those are both fine, but with a 360 you're going to reduce your noise level and keep the temperatures just a smidge lower. Now, a powerful system like this, you're going to need a powerful power supply, and that's why I've got this 1000 watt Corsair RM 1000. So plenty of headroom here on the parts, because power supplies work best when they're between 50 and 70% usage, and on a 1000-watt power supply we're going to be in that ballpark here, so we're getting the maximum efficiency and making sure we're extending the life of the power supply as far as possible. And another really important part, and the final part I'm going to tell you about now, is the case, and this is the Cooler Master TD500 mesh, and this is the white version. We've done a few white builds in this case before. I might pop up a couple of pictures on screen to show you. We also did a nice review of the TD500 mesh as well. And basically, TLDR is that this is probably on paper my favourite case, I would say. Build process is easy. You got great space for all of the components. You can fit these big graphics cards in no problem. You can put a 360mm liquid cooler on the top, and when it's all said and done, it looks really nice as well. So it's a real all-rounder, and it comes in at under £100 with 3 RGB fans included. I think overall it's just so balanced, it's so nice. I think it's a fantastic case. Now, one of the reasons why a lot of people like the builds that we do on the channel and indeed on our store is that they look nice. We go for aesthetics on the build as well as performance. So for the cabling here, we used a Shakmods 24-pin extension, but you could really use any white extension. I just like the Shakmods because they're pre-combed, which means you don't have to do all that fiddly bit putting all the clips on, and they look nice and they're reasonably priced as well. Now for the graphics card, we're going to need that 16-pin adapter. Now, there is absolutely no way I'm using that disgusting octopus that comes in the box, so we're going to be using this FasGear adapter. Basically, it's got that 16-pin for the graphics card, and then it's a long cable, and then on the back you have 3 8-pins that you plug in for the power. Works really nicely. I've used 2 of these now, coming onto a third one coming up in the next video. They seem to be working absolutely fine. I think it's a real con actually that you get that ugly octopus with these really expensive graphics cards. It's a bit of a travesty if you ask me. And if you want one of these cables, sometimes a bit hard to find, there's a link down in the description which I get a kickback for, probably about 2p or something, but it all helps. If you use the link in the description, you can find that cable there. It's actually pretty reasonably priced as well. Also in the description is a link to my own shop, JCPC Customs, which is worth checking out if you or one of your mates is after a gaming PC in the UK. Or you can just browse, you know, have a look around, see what you like the look of. You can just copy the spec and build it yourself. You know, that's fine. I would probably do the same thing. It's cool. But with that all said and done, let's build it up and check out the performance. Following this build Taj, let's go.
It's the devil on my shoulder, and the mistakes that keep me up. And maybe I'm afraid that everything I've done has been a fluke, and now I'm running out of luck. Yeah, it's been a little rough here, but I treat it like a friend. Another person that I know won't stay forever, so I deal till the interaction ends. Just a momentary thing. And when I wake up from the darkness, there's a song that I will sing. I love the peace I found, the peace I found, the peace I found, the peace I found. And I know that you will leave me, but I hope it's not for long. You and I are at our best when we're together, so I deal, but I miss you when you're gone. You and I are ocean air, we're floating on a summer day. Gotta love, gotta hope, gotta trust it.
Ooh, yeah! I think this looks absolutely banging. A real spectacle. Filled out. Packed. RGB. Check. F-off massive graphics card. Check. Smug bugger presenting the video. Check. Really clean look. Lovely white cabling worthy of any gaming setup, but looks are just one thing. What about performance? In Heaven benchmark, we're about 20% behind the RTX 4090, but only about 12 FPS behind in Cyberpunk. So the 4090 is really a card for you guys playing at 4K. Below 4K, there's not much utility to the 4090 over this 4080, in my humble opinion. We've had some laughs, we've had some tears, we've had some jokes at the expense of your mother, but after all that, what do I think? Now, I think bloody gorgeous PC, looks amazing. This graphics card stays nice and cool, as you'd expect from such an overkill heatsink. But really, besides the professional players, the guys that are playing for money, who really needs this level of performance? Yeah, if you've got the money, why not? But really, if you can afford a 4080, you can probably afford a 4090, let's be honest. I'd say most users getting this card simply don't need it, and they're running on FOMO. That's the fear of missing out for you boomers out there like me. I didn't actually know what that meant until a couple of years ago. Fun story. Once you get past RTX 3080 performance, we're kind of in niche territory, and we're at the cutting edge where this is not really relevant for most users. At 1440p, with this 4080 that we use today, we're starting to hit CPU bottlenecks, where tuning your CPU and RAM is how we're going to unlock greater performance. Food for thought. And speaking of which, tell me your thoughts below. Check out this video where we put together a build with the RTX 4090, which is similarly hilariously large, just like your mother. Like and sub so we can meet again, and never, ever, ever forget that cat you saw at the start is my cat, Bobby. Where's my good boy? Good boy, Bobby Bibster. Good boy, Bobby Bibster. Come here. I found him. He's here. Say hello, Bob. Say hello to the nice viewers. Well, he's not going to say hello. But anyway, he's a good boy. He really is. Goodbye.